Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning or evening, depending on where you are. Of course, my name is Yuji Lim, the Administration and Finance Consultant of the EAP Secretariat, and I'll be the first moderator for today's workshop. I'd like to warmly welcome everyone who is here today. This is the second training in-depth workshop of the Youth Think Tank Competition Day 2. We have the youth organizing team members here, trainer Ms. Marcy, and three speakers, Ms. Amy Lecciones, Mr. Johnson Chung, and Professor Wataru Kitamura with us today. So please kindly note that this session is being recorded. Also, don't forget to add your country after your name on your Zoom profile. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat box so we can answer you shortly, or your questions will be answered during the Q&A time. So next is today's rundown will be followed by the order here. Please stay tuned for presenters' insight and expertise in conservation. So before we start, we prepared two questions reflecting yesterday's workshop as warming up game. So question number 1 is, what does FPIC stand for? If you think answer A is the answer, please raise your hand and stay still if you think B is the answer. I'll give you some time to think about it. So please raise your hand if you think A is the answer. I can see 3 people are, 4. Please raise your hand if you think A is the answer for question number 1. Okay, I think we can share the answer now. And the answer was A. Congrats, A people, those who got it right. Thank you. And let's move on to question number 2. Is this correct statement on community engagement? Community engagement works best where it is an ongoing cumulative process enabling relationships and trust to build and strengthen over time. If you think this statement is true for community engagement, please raise your hand. And if you think this statement is false, please stay still. Okay, let me reveal the answer. Congratulations for those who raised their hands. The answer was true. Thank you very much. That's all for the warm-up session. And I can see we have more people are joining, so I think we can start. But before we start, let's take a group picture of today's workshop. Can everyone turn on their cameras so we can take group photos? Okay, can we move on to next? Okay, thank you very much, Yeonju. So for those who missed or cannot remember yesterday's workshop, let me invite trainer Mercy for a short recap of day 1 and additional points. So Miss Mercy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks Yuji for inviting me, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. Let me try and share my screen first. There you are. I hope everyone you can see my screen. So I'll just do a recap of what we learned yesterday, or just to go through on some of the key points that we went through yesterday with additional points. And hoping that today is also going to be a successful day, and that you're going to learn 1 or 2 things from these 2 hours that we have today. So we went through like some key terms that we defined, or some key terms that we came across yesterday include the community, And we say that a community should be, it's a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristics or interest in common. So this does not mean only just the people who live in the same place. It means that people who have the same interest. It's not necessarily the people living in the same area. It's not about people who have the same social status. It's more of people with a particular interest, and they also have similar characteristics in some cases. So when it comes to social diversity, again, this is all, it means all of the ways that people within a single culture are set apart from each other. So it includes, social diversity includes different diversity or different characteristics that people have within a community. So it can be about lifestyle, it can be about the language that they speak, it can be about their class, their wealth, their language, their level of education, age, etc. And another term that we came across is socially differentiation. This is more of the distinction between made between two social groups and persons on the basis of biological, physical, or social cultural factors. So again, this is more of like the social differences that a community or a group of people might have. And this is more of like why the what term came in is, for us, when you're conducting a project or conservation project within a community, we as conservationists, or we as people who work in environmental projects or conservation projects, we need to really understand the social differences within a community so that our projects or the conservation projects can be a success, and also we can be able to include all the different groups within a community. The FPIC, I think it was part of our warming session, and I say that FPIC is a free, prior, informed consent, and this is more of like a process or a concept that we as conservationists we need to consider. It's really coming up lately that within each conservation community conservation project, the communities or the indigenous people need to be involved in every step of the project, and it's not like it's not obvious. It's not always the case that the communities are going to give a consent or they're going to agree on any project or all conservation project that you're bringing on board. But then it's a process that the communities have the right to say yes or no, but also if they're well informed, if they're well engaged, if they're well, it's coming from their free will, they're not coerced, they're not forced to say yes on a particular project, then it builds, it's a concept that can build trust and that can build a relationship between the project managers and the communities. And that can mean that even the communities will feel part and parcel, or they will own the project. A stakeholder, we say that is a community or people or a person or even an organization with an interest or concern on something or concern in something. That is generally to say that in our projects or in conservation projects that involve communities, there's always, or there's going to be always a stakeholder or stakeholders who are key or who are important in the implementation of the project and also in the success of the project that we'll be working on. So just going through some key planning points that we had like yesterday. Human livelihoods and development depend on the natural resources or the ecosystems, and working with people is it's inseparable when conserving nature. So that means that we can't separate human livelihoods and development at the same time, because both of them depend on ecosystems or depend on natural resources. We also saw that people may have positive and negative impacts on the environment and vice versa. That means that conservation activities or our conservation projects can have both positive and negative impacts on people. An example of a positive impact for people on conservation is that people will, indigenous people especially, will have, or they have knowledge that can help conservationists be able to come up with implementation, come up with activities that will implement, or the activities that will contribute to conservation of a site or a species. But when it comes to a negative, another example for a negative impact for people on conservation or on environment is that people might feel that we might have issues of human-wildlife conflicts, especially when a conservation project comes in and tries to try to come up with laws that inhibit or prevent the communities from accessing the natural resources that they've been accessing freely. For example, it can be like we might introduce electric fences, and then the communities might feel that this is not what they are used to, and then they'll end up trying to enter, or they try to use the resources that they used to use before, and then that might create a conflict between wildlife, or even between the enforcement people and the local community. So the other point is conservationists. We need to develop skills and understanding to enable us to work effectively with local communities and partners. So that means that trying to understand their social aspect, trying to understand the differences within our communities, and develop a skill to be able to know how can we, or how can conservationists, or even you when you're working with you're working on your conservation initiatives, how do you support the livelihoods of the local communities with minimum or no damage, but at the same time trying to achieve, or try to achieve your conservation objectives. When it comes to I think this one I said, the term community is commonly used to mean people who live in the same geographical area, but more broadly, it means any group with a common interest. So here the main point is the common interest. It can be a community living in the same area, but if they don't have a common interest, then that might bring challenges, or might bring conflict within a community. And also communities are not homogeneous. This means that there are differences within our communities depending on their interests, power, gender, age, class, wealth, or even their level of education. And then when we work with our community, or when we work with a community, we need to learn about the complexities of the community. I think this is more of, these 3 points, we are trying to emphasize, or the key point is that as you work with the local communities, it's very important for us to understand the differences, understand the complexity, because not all communities are the same. For example, if you're in Hong Kong, when you're working in a community, it can be totally different when you're in Philippines with the communities there, because each community is unique. Each community has its own interests. They have their own objectives. They have their own level of understanding. They have even their own social, cultural differences. So it's important to understand, even if we are familiar with the community, we sometimes do not see the diversity and the inequalities within the community. So it's more important, the point here, it's more important as you go to the community, as you are planning to engage with the community, take time to understand try to understand the diversity, or try to understand their interest, and then so that you can have a successful local community or local engagement project. Again, communities are not static, but change over time. So the other points that I want to emphasize is that given the unequal distribution of power, we need to try to facilitate the participation of marginalized people. This is usually people try to overlook this point of the marginalized people, because they tend to think that they probably do not have any value, or they do not have any key points, or they can't contribute to your project. But it's very important to understand, because each and every person in a community, may it be a person who is very wealthy or people who are marginalized, it's important to have their points. It's important to take in their key points to be able to include in your project, or to be able to include during the implementation of your project, so that every person in the community, every person in the local group that you're working with will be able to feel part and parcel, and they will own your project, to be able to make sure. And this is especially this point, we can use the concept of FPIC, free, prior, informed consent, to understand each and every community, to understand if your community has marginalized people, how do you engage them? How do we make sure that they feel valued and they have a contribution to the projects? So the other point is knowledge about the communities in which you work is key to understanding these differences, including from the people's own perspective. this is again a point that will be clarified when you conduct or when you have free prior informed consent in your projects. It's also important to be clear and precise about the purpose of your conservation initiatives or conservation projects. I know most of you have already started your project, or some of you are in the process of starting your conservation project. So you have to really understand or have a clear purpose of your project's initiatives, and that the communities understand, to reduce any threats or to reduce any conflicts between you as a project implementers or project managers with the local communities. So I'm trying to understand that this does not affect, your project does not affect the community that you're working with. And lastly, recognizing diversity and engaging multiple stakeholders helps to build legitimacy, generate innovative solutions, enhance transparency, promote the achievement of complementary goals, and support and promote and enhance social equity. Again, well, if you I don't know if all of you were here yesterday when George gave his presentation. This is also very clear that he shared with us how he engaged different communities or different stakeholders within the Lake Olbolosat area, and it was clear enough that he shared with us the achievement that they've had so far, and this is mainly because they were able to understand different stakeholders in every step of their project, and they were able to build trust, and they were able to come up to ensure that everyone feels part and parcel and everyone has a contribution to make within the project. So understanding different stakeholders is very important, as we're going to see also in the next 3 or 4 case study presentation that we're going to have, and also in our today's activity, which is going to be on stakeholders analysis. Yes, I think I'll end there, and this is an example. This is an activity that I'm going to come back and explain when we are going to do the activity 2. So I think that's it, all I had in terms of the recap, or in terms of trying to just share with you key points that we learned yesterday.
Thank you very much, Marcy, for the recap and additional explanations. It was really insightful. So if you have any questions regarding Marcy's presentation, please leave a question on the chat box. Let's wait for the questions. While we're waiting for the questions, this is a gentle reminder. Please add your country after your name on Zoom profile. Or if you have any questions for Marcy's presentation, please raise your hand so we can answer your question. Okay, then please leave your questions or comments on the chat box. Then Marcy will answer you through the chat later. And we're going to take a group photo again, so please turn on your camera. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, we just received a question. Mercy, in China, young people around the reserve have gone out to work. How can the left behind elderly people participate? Could you please answer this question?
Thank you for the question. So this is an interesting question, because I've seen lots of partners that have been working with in Africa and also in part of Asia, that it's an issue that most young people leave the reserve area or leave the areas where we have rich biodiversity and go to, for example, cities to look for jobs. But then the elder people are left, and these are elderly people are very, they are very wealthy in terms of the knowledge that they have. They have the local knowledge of biodiversity and what used to be done before, what used to happen before. So the way we can effectively engage them, in my thinking, is more of having, they might not have the physical energy to do physical jobs in restoration, for example, but we can engage them in terms of getting knowledge from them. We can engage them in discussions, a focus group discussion, having a meeting with them and getting to understand the knowledge and use that knowledge in implementing our projects. So it's more of the engagement or the participation will be more of like knowledge sharing, in sharing the indigenous knowledge, and also giving us giving you the ideas or ways of how we can implement a conservation project that we have. So it's not, we might not have, or you might not have them going to the field with you and, for example, planting mangroves or planting trees, but they will give you the knowledge, which I think in my case, it's very important, because with you as young people, you can use the knowledge that they have plus the current knowledge information that we have, and then have an innovative solution when it comes to conservation objectives or conservation activities that you're engaging in. So I hope I've answered your question.
And Mercy, we received another question from Yoon. Could you also please answer this?
The question is, I was wondering if there's any special advice on how to deal with the group of local people who don't see the sustainable values of conservation, but want to focus more on economic development that affects their short-term gains. So which could possibly harm, okay. So this is also an interesting question, because again, you can't tell people to conserve, for example, a site or a species without them having any economical value or economic value, because it's human nature to be able to see, what am I gaining from this? What am I gaining in terms of my economic status? What am I gaining from that? So, so the advice here will be more of like having initiatives or having a conservation initiative, try to include activities, or trying to include ideas, mostly activities that have both economic benefits. This is something that you might see it's short term, but at the end, when the communities are part and parcel, or the communities have understood that your conservation objective can lead to empowering them, or can lead to improving the economic status, then the initiative will not be short term. It will be more of like a long term gain. Sorry, it was going to be more of a long term gain, because the community feel that they're gaining something. It's not just because of a 2-year project. It's not because of a 1-year project. They have bought in the idea. They are participating in it fully, and they're seeing the gain. So it's more of like, it takes time. I know working in the community is not an easy affair. It's usually takes time to convince the community that, okay, this year it's not going to be the same as last year or the next year. So it's more of like making sure that the communities have really understood the objective, and they are really aware of the purpose of the project, and they can see the long-term goal or the long-term plan that the project has, or even what livelihood initiatives or livelihood impact it's going to have in their lives. So it's more of the advice here, it's more of like, it takes time. So it's more of make sure that you constantly engage in the communities, constantly informing them, this is the objective, this is the conservation objective that you have, but also it's more of how the community see it. They want to have something in their pocket. They want to take their kids to school, they want to feed themselves. So how are they benefiting from that? But at the same time, they want to see, or we want to see, how they're contributing to the conservation objectives that we have. I think I've also answered the question.
Thank you, Mercy. And we received 2 more questions.
Yeah.
While you're thinking
yes.
the answers, let me just remind participants, please add your country after your name. Thank you.
Okay, so the question, I'll answer the question from Fariha. What are some of the ways to keep the local engaged and interested even after a year? So this one, I think I might have tackled in the previous question, to make sure that the communities are involved or interested even after the project ends. One is to make sure that the communities have understood the purpose, and that they've been part and parcel of your project from the word go. So for example, if you've conducted, or if you can be able to have the FP concept, the free prior informed consent in your project, then that means the communities they've been engaged, or they are informed of all your activities. They are aware of all your ideas, or they are aware of the objectives, the conservation objectives that you have, the impact that you're aiming for, and that if the communities have said yes, if the communities are happy to work with you, then that means that high chances are that they're going to be part and parcel. But in some cases, you might find that the communities at some point, if your project is 2 years, after 1 year, we are not interested in your project anymore. They're going to say no to your activities, and then your project won't be a success. But how do you engage them? It's by every other time informing the communities the progress of the project, going back to the communities, listening to them, listening to any new ideas that they might have, or any new developments that any new development that might come up during your implementation. But again, if you have an economic incentive or a livelihood concept in your project, chances are very high that the communities are going to still continue working on that particular site or a species if they can have an economic benefit, or if they can see we have an economic incentive in this project. So it's for their benefits to continue working in the conservation area or continue working in a particular landscape. So it's more of like how the point here is ensuring that the communities are involved, or that they are informed in every step of your project and they are not left out. It's not like you're going to the communities only when you need them. In some cases, you might be required to just go in the community when they're having their usual community meetings, or they're just doing their own activities. Just go back to them and just have time to listen to them, so that they can see that you're interested not only on your project, but also you're interested in their livelihood development, or also in the economic development. So here the key point is ensure that they are informed in every step, and that if your project has an economic element or livelihood element, that's also an interesting point to be able to make sure that the communities are able to engage even after your 2-year project, or even after your 1-year project. The last question that I will tackle, or that I can see in the chat, what are some of the aspects that should consider before? What the aspects that we should consider before applying? Okay, let me see if I'm getting the question. So I don't know if I'm understanding your question, no? Is it the local knowledge you're asking? At what particular time of your project should you apply the local knowledge?
Yes, about the local knowledge. So usually when we conduct our conservation program, some people give us like their local knowledge. So before we applying their local knowledge to our project, what the aspect that should we consider to applying it, because sometimes that local knowledge not in line with the conservation value like that.
Yeah, okay, I get your question now. So in this case, it can be tricky because, of course, some of the things pass with time, or some of the things are no longer they no longer add value to the, for example, to conservation or to nature. So the point here will be more of if you can be able to again sit down with the communities, the local people, and in this case, it's more of like the indigenous people and the elderly people who are still using the information that is not probably effective at the moment. It's more of sitting down with them and trying to walk through them, or work with them in terms of, this is what you used to do before, but if, for example, science or research has shown that it's no longer effective, and this is what is currently being done. So if you be able to make that understanding, or be able to make that clarification for them to understand that, yes, this used to work 100 years ago, 50 years ago, but with time, things have changed, and this is where we are at the moment. So we might not, the point is that we might not really always take whatever that they say 100%. We might use that information, some of the information, and combined with the current information we have, that is, we can back it up with the science, or we can back it up with the scientific research that has been done. So it's more of like trying to find that balance. It's not, don't always, or I'm not saying like you should not take the advice, or you should not use the local or indigenous knowledge. It's more of taking that information and using it based on the scientific information that we have.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much,
Okay, thank you,
Mercy.
Mercy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we moving on, I think to loosen up ourselves a little bit, I think we can have 1 minute break, stretching our necks and legs. So please stretch your neck a little bit and your shoulder and arms. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Moving on to the next, we have our first case study presentation from Ms. Amy Lecciones. Amy is an executive director at the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, and she will talk about the empowering communities for managing agricultural wetlands. Amy, you now have the floor.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. And I will have to turn off my video because I think there might be some problems with my audio. All right, so you won't see me. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, I just have it on
Could you please make it a full screen?
presentation. Is that okay?
Yes. Could you please make it a full screen?
Yeah, it's already in full screen. It's not in full screen yet?
We can still see the slides. Oh, now it's happening. Thank you.
All right. Okay, wait, so I will have to turn off my video. Never mind. Okay. So is the sound okay?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so thank you for this opportunity of presenting our project. This project was actually funded by the Ramsar Regional Center, East Asia. All right. So let me just tell you about this project. This was actually completed in 2019, and the project site is called the Candaba Wetlands. It is a very huge floodplain, which is considered a key biodiversity area and also an important bird area. In fact, at one time, you can see about 21,000 individuals made up of 80 species in that area. It is a significant area for agriculture and fisheries, water for irrigation, natural water retention, and an extremely important staging and wintering area for migratory birds being part of the EAF. Okay, but our project was concentrated on 135 hectare called Paligi Wetland. It is a private land. It is a rice land owned and managed by the Makagatal Irrigators Association, and where the primary land use of the site is agricultural. It is identified as a strategic integrated crop and fishery subdevelopment zone by the Department of Agriculture. Rice is the primary crop in this farmland, but only one cropping can be done in a year because the rest of the area is submerged like a lake during wet season, as you can see in these photos that I have here. So on dry season, it looks like that, and in wet season, it turns into a lake. Okay, so Candaba continues to be drained to wet agriculture, thus severely limiting habitat for waterfowls. It had been converted into fish ponds, causing vegetation to be patchy, and siltation is also apparent. As I said earlier, this is mostly privately owned, with very small part that is state-owned but has been classified as alienable and disposable. Being a private area and titled, it poses a peculiar concern for conservation. Okay, because of the declining yield in agriculture, farmers are forced to sell their land. And lately, these wetlands are being filled to give way to real estate development, including housing subdivisions, economic zones, and the works. During our initial interviews within the community, it was learned that the farmers consider migratory birds at that time as pests and were indifferent to the idea of protecting them. Okay, so what we wanted to do was actually to conserve a portion of Candaba wetlands in order to come up with some sort of a best practice that, if successful, can be replicated in the other areas in the floodplain. So we wanted to increase the awareness and capacity of local stakeholders, characterize or assess the wetlands, because we wanted to know what was in it, the dynamics of the ecosystem there, and develop a management plan with the farmers that are actually own the land. So you can see here, this guy is the president of the Irrigators Association that we work with. Okay, so we engaged the local community through community meetings with the Makagatal Irrigators Association, trying to explain to them what we were hoping to do in collaboration with them, the community, and even the local government. So we conducted also SIPA activities, that's communication, capacity building, education, participation, and awareness activities, including wetland walks, learning events, workshops, and World Wetlands Day celebration to engage them and include them in our activities at the site, so they will be part of whatever it is that we are doing there, with their consent, of course, as you can see here. Okay. And what we also did was, as part of the whole package, because we found out that there are really a lot of migratory birds in the area, especially during migration season. And some people go there, but with no guides, they just roam around. So we thought it would be a very good way of giving them additional livelihood, and at the same time, increasing their awareness on the importance of these migratory birds. So we talked to the Department of Tourism, and actually they gave free training to these farmers and also the local government and the village officials for 7 days for bird watching guides training. So at the end of that course, they had an exam, and so they are actually those who passed the exams. These farmers are actually official bird guides already. And we also learned that they have been having problems with their rice production yield in the area. So we talked to the Department of Agriculture, and the Agricultural Training Institute gave them, after training needs assessment, gave them a training on rice check. It is a program of the Department of Agriculture to help farmers do sustainable farming, especially when it comes to rice production. Okay. Then aside from that, as I said, we wanted to characterize the area because we wanted to profile it so we know what the issues are, and so that we can help the farmers on how to manage them. So we did site characterization involving our member scientists in the society. Oops. Okay. And included here is the RAWES, the rapid assessment of wetland ecosystem services, which at that time we were just testing, no? So we did water quality, vegetation survey, avifauna, macrofauna, and also RAWES. And with the farmers, we were able to come up with a very simple management plan. We developed one, employing, of course, participatory method, and focusing on increasing the capacity of farmers to manage their farm resources. So this is one of the trainings where even the municipal mayor was with us and the village chiefs. Also the ACADIN, the Pampanga State Agricultural University, and the University of the Philippines, who helped us as experts in the characterization of the area, and also other organizations like the women's organizations and the youth. So they were part of the training that were conducted. So how do we measure success? Our indicators were the number of farmers reached by the SIPA and the training, especially the training, number of organizations and government agencies that agreed to cooperate and partner with the FCPW on the project. On the number of farmers, we reached more than 150 not just for the training, but for the other information dissemination activities that we did. For number of organizations, we had about 10, including the women and youth and other government agencies that helped us. The number of trainings conducted, we conducted 3 trainings, and we were able to come up with a simple agreement with the Makagatal Irrigators Association to agree to conserve that portion of their land, particularly for birds. And our main challenge was actually at first to build trust and maintain interest of the local communities in conservation work, which we think we hurdled successfully, because up to now we are still working with them. But after that, our challenge was the lack of funds to operationalize their ecotour activity in the management plan. In their management plan, as I said, we had them trained already as bird watching guides. But the problem is they don't have equipment. So only those who bring their own binoculars are able to really do the bird watching. But it would have been nice if we were able to raise funds for binoculars that they can rent out to tourists. Okay, but since we completed it in 2019, the project, so before the pandemic, we completed the project. However, the implementation of the other planned activities like the ecotourism had been put on hold because of the difficulty in, of course, bringing in people, especially because of the strict health protocols. However, we were very lucky that last year, we were able to secure funds for the implementation of their management plan, which will start this July 2022. Yeah, it was supposed to start last year, but there had been some little changes in the funding agreement, so it was postponed to July of this year. Okay. So what are the things that we do there? We brought in 2019 for World Wetlands Day, we brought in the media to that area. I think we brought 24 people from the media, and we did a learning event and a birding activity and wetland walk, and it appeared in major newspapers in the country. And so we are really prepared already for the ecotourism. So ecotourism activity, we were just waiting for funds to be able to implement it. Okay, so this is in 2020, before the start of the pandemic. We had the World Wetlands Day in the university, which is close to that area and which is also cooperating with us. And we even have here the senator who is the chairman of the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources, because she is very happy as to what will be happening in the Candabo wetlands in terms of the activities that are planned that we will be implementing this year. Okay. This was also in 2020, before the pandemic, where we brought during the World Wetlands Day for the Wetlands Bio Blitz. We brought in participants, including the community leaders, other stakeholders, and the village chiefs and the mayor. And all of them were able to take a wetland walk in the Paligi wetlands and do some bird watching as an initial activity to kick off the activities that are in the management plan. Unfortunately, after this event, we had to hold all activities because of the pandemic. And just a sneak preview, that event, the World Wetlands Day 2020, where we had a big program, it was highlighted by the launch of the design of the proposed Paligi Wetland Center. So our design team has designed this wetland center which is the subject of was actually a study based on the study of the profile of the area. So this is one of our dreams that we hope we will be able to put up so that our farmers will not only be able to protect Paligi wetlands, but at the same time, will be able to disseminate to stakeholders the importance of wetlands through the wetland center, and at the same time, create a livelihood for them. Okay, so we were able to secure funds for the initial implementation of this wetland center and also the conservation programs that are in projects rather that are indicated in the management plan. This was through our partner. This is through our partner, the Global Nature Fund, and this will start in July or August of this year. So we will be able to at least initially, come up with this Paligi Wetland Center. I think that's the end of my presentation. I will be happy to answer questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. And we'll have Q&A session after all three presentations. Thank you for the insightful information and congrats on securing the funds. Now moving on to the second speaker, I would like to invite Mr. Johnson Chung, who is a project manager of Hong Kong Bird Watching Society. Johnson will give us an insight into Hong Kong Fishpond conservation scheme. Johnson, the floor is yours.
Okay, hi everyone. Can you see the screen and also hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm Johnson from Hong Kong Bird Watching Society. I'm the project manager of a wetland conservation project. Before I start my presentation, I would like to thank EAAFP for organizing this workshop for every young conservationists and fellows, and also give an opportunity to me to share our experience about the wetland conservation in Hong Kong. The title of my presentation is Hong Kong Fishpond Conservation Scheme. It is a community engagement project that we cooperate with local stakeholders to conserve our wetland. Okay, here is the outline of the presentation. I would like to give some background information of the project first, and then the fish pond habitat management will be introduced, and the third session will share engagement with fishermen and community, and also some project achievement will be shared. Okay, this slide show the project site. Yeah, as we know, Hong Kong is a urbanized city. However, there are still some agricultural wetland can be found in the northwest area. Yeah, the name of this area called Deep Bay. This more pond you can see on the screen, our fish pond. Our project covered two project sites. One is the yellow boundary. It is the international wetland, Maple Inner Deep Bay Ramsar site. It is the only one Ramsar site in Hong Kong, and one out of 64 Ramsar sites in China. Besides the red boundary is Deep Bay Wetland outside Ramsar site. It covers many commercial fish ponds outside the Ramsar site. Like the agriculture practice in many other Asian countries, the fish ponds in Hong Kong is in Hong Kong mainly cultivate the freshwater fish such as the gray mullet, tilapia, and other species. Most of the fish ponds were created since 1980s. It is the golden age of the Hong Kong fishery. However, management costs increased in the past 20 years. Income of fishermen dropped continuously. According to our survey, the FA age of fishermen is 63 years old in 2021. Many fishermen, including their young generation, leave the industry. As a result, more and more fish ponds are abandoned in the bay. Meanwhile, like many coastal cities, wetland is considered to be a good land supply for urban development. Like the case just Amy shared in Philippines. To compare the satellite images of 1979 on the left one and the 2021 on the right, about 50%, yeah, half of the fish pond disappeared in past 40 years in Hong Kong. Okay, as we know, Fishpond is a kind of wetland habitat for bird. Our baseline study found that more than 230 bird species utilize the fish pond, such as the bird on the white one, the white-throated kingfisher, and other water birds. The reason is that Hong Kong is located in a pond of EAAF. Every winter, the migratory bird visit the bay wetland. The pecan can reach 50,000 water birds. The wetland provide food and roosting site to the water bird. Besides, we conduct a survey to investigate the number of water bird change before and after drawing down a fish pond. The abundance of water bird has increased by 20-fold on average during drawing down. Yeah, later I will interview more about what's drawing down in fish pond. And there are 10 globally threatened and near threatened species can be found in a drained fish pond, such as the bat-faced spoonbill, and sometimes the spoonbill sandpiper, which is the critically endangered birds, can also be found in fish pond. Then to solve the habitat loss problem, our society commenced a conservation project since 2012. This graph shows the element of the project. It includes the NGO, the landowner and tenant, in our project, the tenant is the fisherman. Yeah, the arrow in the center is our common grant. Through the financial incentive, our society invites the fishermen to implement management agreement. Besides, both of us would like to promote the pond fish culture, sustainability, and environmental sustainability. Because of this common grant, we work out the Hong Kong Fish Pond Conservation Scheme. The project is funded by a Hong Kong government funding. Then it is the local community engagement. This is the main theme of today's workshop. First, every engaged fisherman signed a contract with our society. They agree to support the scheme and agree the requirement of the habitat management. This photo on the left so that we signed the contract with the fishermen last year. Because of the COVID-19, we arranged the fish pond fishermen sit in small group. And the photo on the right-hand side taken in 2019. We want to appreciate their contribution. And so we awarded the certificate to all the fishermen engaged in our project. And here is some figure of last year. There are 162 fishermen engaged in our project. It covers 90% of the eligible fishermen in the bay. Okay, what do fishermen do after signing the contract? It is habitat management. We encourage all fishermen to drain down in order to provide food sources for water birds. In the agreement, we set the requirement of drain down, it should be a lowering of at least 1 meter of water depth of the fish pond, and keep this condition at least 7 days. And after finish the drain down, we may give a management fee to the fishermen. This image shows the egret consume the trapped fish and stream left after harvesting. On the other hand, we also provide a management fee to fishermen for the other habitat management. It's called profiling. We encourage fishermen to use a traditional practice, the profiling. You may find that the pond bund after maintenance will have a gentle slope. It serves as a roosting site and also some feeding space for water birds such as egret and heron. Also, last but not the least, all engaged fish pond should be free of the trapping device. The mist net and animal traps are not allowed to use. If we find trap in fish pond or received some reported case, we may suspend their agreement and hold the management fee. Okay, apart from the habitat management, we organize a lot of education activities with fishermen. Due to time limitation, I just share some highlight of the activity. For example, we invite fishermen to be the interpreter of eco tour. They demonstrate their traditional fishery practice to the participants. Besides, we organize a signature program, which is the Fishpond Festival. More than 400 participants join the festival every year. Besides, we also promote local fishery products. Our staff and volunteers sell the eco-friendly fishery product in supermarket. Our aim is not to earn money. Actually, we want more public to know the value of fish pond. Furthermore, we want to let fishermen know that NGO do not only concern the birds in fish pond, but we also can do something to benefit the fishery industry and concern their livelihood. And we do concern the fishery sustainability too. After cooperation with fishermen in last 10 years, we observed some behavioral change. Some of them is willing to participate in environmental education program and even assist to organize the festival. Some of them know more about ecological and cultural value of the wetland, and number of illegal hunting decreased. Okay, recently, we also conduct a questionnaire last month to investigate the fishermen view about our conservation work. One of the highlight question is, do you agree that pond fish culture can coexist with wildlife conservation? There are 76% fishermen agree that. We are very surprised at this result. Some fishermen change their mind to conservation. We believe that our conservation with fishermen for last 10 years make them change. They know more our work and we work together for common goal. And the most important thing is that we build mutual trust between us. To make a conclusion, 4 parties input the project to make it work. It includes the landowner, the NGO, the government, and also the public. In our case, the tenant, who is fishermen, manage their fish pond and provide their agricultural knowledge. NGO is responsible to do the project planning and management. such as prepare the proposal to apply the funding. We also conduct scientific research to prove the ecological value of wetland. And NGO also do the whole project coordination and related education program. Government provide funding and policy support, and the public can support local fishery product and to be volunteer to assist the education activities. Okay, we hope that through the cooperation among different parties, people and birds can live in harmony like this picture. More wetland can be conserved. It is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johnson, for the informative speech. It was great to know about all different stakeholders' engagement on fish ponds conservation. Last but not least, let me introduce Professor Wataru Kitamura. Professor Kitamura is an associate professor from the Tokyo City University. Today, he will talk about the Litter Term project in Japan. May I please invite Professor Kitamura?
Okay, hello. Now I will show you my slides. Can you see this?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so hello, I'm Wataru Kitamura from Litter Term project, and I am a president of organization stands for the conservation of litter terms. And as you see, I introduced me, and I am also teaching conservation biology at university. Today I will wear the T-shirt of my university. Okay, so today I will talk about our project and some aspects of citizen science. Okay, this is litter terms. They are members of girls, and they breed in Japan in summer, and they form colonies with tens to thousands of individuals at one side, and they prefer bare grounds or ground without grass. So, and they feed small fishes like this size, 10 centimeters or so. So this photo shows that parent, maybe this is male and this is female, and gives fish to their chick. Because you can see all over the world, so maybe you will see in your countries, and but they also only breed in the Eurasian continent. So, but now they breed in the all over the world. But its problem is that the population of South Asian population is now decreasing. So they are now categorized as vulnerable species in Japan. The reason why the number of litter term is decreasing is believed that the change in land use. In the past, we have a good coastal areas even near Tokyo metropolitan. So this is map of Tokyo Bay, and it was natural coastal lines in the past, but this is a map of nowadays. Now we can see the lot of landfills, and so why litter term is decreasing is that nesting and foraging sites for them has been lost. In their nature, litter terms breed on the ground, like the riverside with the small rocks, or this kind of sandy beaches. This is their nest. They just put on their eggs on the ground, and they don't make a large nest. And they have started breed on artificial bare grounds like car parks, because these sites are now not used. Now they cannot use these sites because of changing the land use. And then finally, they start to breeding, and finally they do not have enough place for breeding, and they started to breed on the rooftop of buildings. This is a photo of our rooftop, and so you can see that little small white. These are also, each of these individual little terns. But rooftops is a not suitable size for little terns because they just put on the eggs, just lay the eggs on the rooftops. So eggs are rolling in the wind and most of them are broken. So as we first discovered the breeding of little terns in 2001, and then we started the project to conserve the little terns. At first, and also regularly since then, we have had meetings with people from Ota City. Ota City is one of the local area of Tokyo Metropolitan, and people from the Department of Storage, Tokyo Metropolitan Government, because this building is a rooftop of the Water Reclamation Center. So here is a artificial island called Showajima here, and we have a large water reclamation center in here, and this is Haneda Airport. So they start to breed on the rooftop of the water reclamation center. So we had a meeting with people from Ota City and people from the Department of Storage and us. So, and these three are only stakeholders of this problem because of its uniqueness of the site. The rooftop is in the site of the Department of Storage, but Ota City has a plans to use the rooftop as a park and has a right to use it. Because of this, Department of Storage could not easily change use of the current top, though they had plans to use the rooftop as a site for the solar power generation. So this is a very uniqueness of our project. So, and then we also actively giving the situation of little terns to the mass media. And so why we did like this, because we have created a situation where governments cannot easily use the rooftop for their other plans. After the first meeting, we started conservation measures for the little terns. At first, we scattered the sands on the rooftops to prevent the eggs from the rolling with the wind. And we also weeding to keep the rooftop without grass. And we also had predator controls. We put the shelters like this on the rooftop, and you can see the chicks here. So chicks can hide into the shelters and they can hide from the predators like crows. We also place decoys made by wood for attracting little terns with the help of junior high school students as a part of their class. This is one of the environmental education of our project. So I will show some photos. This is a building of the water reclamation center. And there's a kind of water reclamation plants under the rooftop. And we can see the brown sand, and small white color is made by the spreading the seashells. Then little terns come with a lot of their friends. And can you see how many birds are in the? Do you know how many birds in the photos? Maybe you may see the 7 birds, but these 4 birds in the right is made from the wood. It means that decoys. And this is true birds. And please see he has a fish, because little terns have male little terns give small fishes to the female. And if females agree with that, they receive the fish. So then engage with the male fish, male little-tans. So the male little-tans bring to fish to propose the decoys. So some tragedy here. Some male little-tans loves the decoy birds, so they just put the fish on their beaks. But it's not always the case. This is a usual pattern of the little-tan breeding. They lay eggs on the sand on the rooftop. And the chicks are hatched after 3 weeks. Then chicks can walk around soon after they hatched. The parents come to feed their parents. So I think it's too big for its chick, but they can eat. This is, yes, I think it's not chick. It's called young little-tans. They can fly in the 3 weeks after hatch. So they will go back to their southern countries. We conducted monitoring research with voluntary people at this rooftop. So from May to August, we had monitoring research once a week. We walk around all over the rooftop and find eggs and chicks and monitoring the breeding situation. So we call these people research. We need 10 to 15 people in each day. So we call research volunteers to come and join our project. So this is a kind of result of our monitoring. Sorry, it's written in English, but blue line means the total numbers of the nest in the year, and red line means the total numbers of chicks in that year. So as a result of a monitoring survey, we have found more than 10,000 of little-tan chicks at this colony in the 20 years of our project. But number of them are not stable year by year. Some years a high number and some years a low number. Now we know many from the monitoring with volunteer. So for example, this rise in the number of breeding birds may be due to the success of predator controls. But predators like crows is soon acclimate with the predator control. So soon the number of breeding chance are soon decreasing. So this is a brief introduction of our activity, but today I will show you some more information related to citizen science. Citizen science is defined as a public participation in organized research and contain 3 aspects according to this book. So I will show some aspects in first. Okay. So at first, we conducted a kind of pure science research. Monitoring revealed that the necessary preference of the little-tans. We have found that little-tans like this white part of the white ground as for their nesting site. So now we want to know that how do they prefer white color substrate? So manipulating ground colors by spreading white shells. And we found that the result is very clear. If we spread the shell, a lot of little-tans breed there. And we also investigate migratory routes of little-tans with using geolocators. Geolocator can record the time and light for calculating latitude and longitude where they are flying. So this is results of our geolocator survey. And now we are thinking that little towns come from this route. The second part is environmental education. We hope a lot of people to join our project, but it does not possible to occur that ordinary people become the members suddenly. So we form hierarchical structure for people to join our project gradually. At first, we expect people just know little dance, then join bird watching, then come as a volunteer, and then come as a research volunteer for monitoring, and then become a member. For that purpose, we draw a picture book, or make a kind of little town toys and several bird watching events in the year. Finally, our activity is involved as a conservation plans for the governments. This is a basic environmental plan of Ota City. And here's a map up in the Ota City, and this road, its road is important habitats for wildlife in Ota City, and the rooftop is one of the places. And this is future goals written in the this basic environmental plans. And it says that increase the percentage of citizens who knows about little towns to 70% in 10 years. So our activity is also introduced in the the guidelines made by Ministry of Environment. So our activities are introduced in these guidelines. So, and about the citizen science, more information about the Little Town Project citizen science is written in this research paper. And I just wrote about adaptive management of threatened bird species for that citizen science. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Kitamura, for sharing the thoughtful information on little terns in Japan. For those who don't know, this year is the year of terns. Once again, thank you so much for today's presenters, and leave your questions and comments on the chat box so our presenters could answer your questions. And before we go through them, Miss Yumi Sim, our beloved colleague, is now taking the floor as a moderator. Yumi, please start when you're ready.
So, hello everyone, I'm Yumi Sim, and I'm a communication assistant at the EAAFP Secretariat. So I'll be the leading moderator for the second half of the workshop, starting with the Q&A section. As we don't have a lot of time, we can only accept 2 questions per speaker, and we apologize for that. But if you can start typing in your questions in the chat, preferably with the speaker name as well, we can ask the speakers. Thank you. Are there any questions? Oh, okay, so we have one for Professor Wataru Kitamura. As the decoys are used to attract the terns, is there any negative impacts from using the decoys towards the terns?
I don't think there's negative effect. Maybe some negative effects are if we place a lot of decoys, little terns cannot use the place as their breeding habitat. So, but it's the effect is very small.
Thank you, Professor, for the answer. Are there any other questions for the other speakers?
Is it possible if I ask a question also?
Yes, please.
Yes, then my question goes to Ami, and thank you all for the great presentation. So the question is about the participatory rural appraisal, or the research tools that you used to engage the local communities. So are you able to briefly just tell us what are some of the tools that you used? I know somebody, I think it would be nice for the participants to at least have an idea of some of the participatory tools or that you engage the communities.
Okay, so the participatory participatory tools that we used include consultations, meetings, learning events, and participatory planning that we did, particularly in crafting the very simple management plan that we prepared with the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the answer. We actually have one more question for Amy. In agricultural wetlands, waterbirds will bring losses to crops and fish. Farmers don't like those waterbirds that steal food. Is there such a problem in Kandaba wetlands, and how is it solved?
Actually, that's what I was saying. At first, the farmers, when we were interviewing them at first, they were not really keen on, conserving the area for the birds, because they said these birds are pests, but we have to explain to them that actually you can coexist with the birds, and particularly during the migration season, because during the migration season, the area becomes a lake. So there's not really much vegetation, but the birds are there. Except when they start planting in December, and the floodwaters drain, and they start planting, and the birds are still there. So that was their main problem, because the birds, you are right, actually, the birds actually consume the the rice, because towards February or March, the rice starts to mature. So it's almost harvest time. And then that's also the time when the birds are back. So it's really a problem. But before, they used to look at them as pests. But now they understand more that they also have to coexist with these birds. So there is still that, of course, some of them are still, how do you say that? They are still not very much convinced as to how to keep these birds away from their crops. But the scientists in our team had been saying that we just have to sort of stratify more the vegetation there, so that the birds will have somewhere to rest, and also to have some more food aside from just eating the rice. And also during the flooding season, there are fishes in the area when it turns into a lake. So somehow the problem is still there, but the farmers are more understanding, and they're hoping that maybe the losses that they will be incurring from the crops that are being consumed by these birds will be offsetted if they have additional livelihood, like for example for the bird watching, where they can earn revenues, and also for the eco-trek. So it's really a balancing act that we have to do. Thanks.
Thank you for the answer. We have one more question for Professor Kitamura. Could you tell us how the method that your team used to control the crows or other predators?
Okay. And can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm so sorry for written in Japanese, but this is some of our predator controls. We saw this kind of shelter, and we place a phrase on the fence, and we place spikes on the everywhere. And we also try to put the cage on the Lichotang nest, but it's not good for Lichotangs. The plovers always go into this kind of cages, but Lichotangs do not like to do not like this kind of cages. And we also tried another plans called yes, and eggs with a pink. We put a white colored paint in the clay egg, and if the crows put the eggs, so they become white beaks. So they don't like this kind of thing. So they may escape from the colony site. And we also tried some commercial goods for the counter crows, like disgusting crows or kind of spring sand propellers. And we also tried robots, moving robots like crows, or some yellow colored tape, or like that. So we tried so lots of countermeasures for the crows and the predators, but we have not a good result yet. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Do we have any questions for Johnson and the fish ponds in Hong Kong? Can I ask the question? So in your presentation, you mentioned diverse education programs like eco tours and exhibitions. I was wondering how often you do throughout the year, and which ones are the most popular or most successful, you think?
Yes, I think the eco tour is most popular because we invite the fishermen to be one of the interpreter to introduce their life and also their fishery practice to the general public. We find that the general public like to speak and like the sharing of the fishermen and also some stakeholder in the village. Yeah, because more of them live in the city. They are they would like more about learn more about the lifestyle in rural area and in some agriculture or agriculture lifestyle. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? We have time for just one more, maybe. Okay, I guess everyone's a little shy. So if you have any questions for the speakers, please leave them in the chat box and we will pass them on for the speakers to answer later. So now we'd like to move on to the breakout group discussions. So thank you all for your insightful questions and answers and comments. I think Mercy has activities for us to do. So I'd like to invite Mercy to explain what we will be doing in the breakout sessions a little in depth. Mercy, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Yumi. I'll try to share my screen. Okay, yeah, so thank you all for the presentation, the different case studies and bringing in different aspects of how you've engaged the local communities, starting from environmental education, citizen science, and also just having different participatory tools on how to engage the communities. So I'd like to introduce our today's activity, which is more a stakeholders analysis and how can you ensure that you've involved all the stakeholders or all the target groups in your project or working on your projects. So this is an example. It's an activity that you're going to use the 3 case studies, and I don't know, initially the plan was to do 4 case studies, including yesterday's from George about the conservation of crown cranes in Kenya, and the 3 case studies that we had today. But I think due to time, we're going to focus on 3 case studies. And what I want you to do today is try and identify the key stakeholders. When you look at the first column is about a case study, about the stakeholders that is going to be involved in your space in a in a project. So as an example here, we have like, for example, crop farmers or poor crop farmers. And after that, you need to identify their interest. What is the interest of the communities, or what is the interest of this particular group in your project? And in this, as an example, we have, they rely on forest for resources or for materials, building materials, or even for food. And then the other column is about impact or influence on the forest and its resources. So this can be either positive or negative. So it's more of like, what is the impact of this target group, the farmers, on the resources? So as an example here, we have a positive influence or impact. It's the need to maintain the forest so that they can continue using the resources. And a negative impact is a potential unsustainable use and degradation of the resources. So by constantly using the resources without either planting more trees or without taking care of the forest, then there's a negative impact that might have long-term negative impact of unsustainable use of the resources. The last column is about how they are likely to be affected by the project. So here it's again both positive or negative. So in some cases, there might be any negative impact, or any positive impact according to how you view the issues. So as an example here is a positive one is in long term benefit will benefit from sustainable use, and a negative impact will be affected by increased enforcement and restriction on use. So farmers may be restricted from using the resources due to, for example, law enforcement that have been introduced, or policies that have been introduced within a locality or within a forest or ecosystem that you're working on. So this is just an example to be able to understand how you can conduct a stakeholder analysis, and also how you want to make sure that you've really understood the impact and you've really understood what contribution a particular stakeholder or a particular target group will have on your project, or vice versa. So as I said earlier, in today's presentation, this is how you're going to see in the Miro board, or in the Miro link that Vivian is going to share. So we are going to divide 3 groups. And as an example here, as I said earlier, we had thought of including the Crown Cranes volunteer case study, but I'm not sure if we're going to include it now. So you'll see this kind of table. You'll have a column of stakeholder, you'll have another column of interest, and another column of impact or influence. This can be either positive or negative, and also how the stakeholder is likely to be affected by the project. I hope that's clear.
Thank you, Mercy. Do we have any questions? Oh, sorry.
No, I'm not sure if, sorry, I have 2 more slides after that. Okay. So I don't know if we do the activity, or first come back after the feedback, and then I go through the different slides.
Maybe we can go through the activity first. And then
okay.
Summarize.
Okay, that's okay. Okay.
So we will now break out into 3 groups, as mentioned. There'll be facilitators in each group to help. For participants, you will be allocated to each group. So please join the room invitation that is now up on your screen. If you have any problems, please let Vivian Fu know. And we will see you in 15 minutes.
They are really focus on the crop productivity, and these conservation actions may have some negative effect on this. So the conflict between birds and the community here is the main influence of this too. So the impact on the habitat and the resources is that farmers may provide their the negative impact is that they may have some bird hunting to prevent them hurting their crops, and on the other hand, the farmers, they provide their rice and their rice field to for the birds to have habitats. And also the farmers can get some positive impacts from this, for they can have implementer of the they can be the implementer of the management plan, and also they can get education on crop productivity and also get some training on sustainable farming. They also can lead some bird watching activities after they have got the training related trainings. And the second, we think the stakeholder is the local government. They the main interest is they can fulfill its mandate to protect significant migratory bird areas, and the influence on the habitat is that mainly in the policy to protect the wetland, and then how can they affected by the project is mainly that they part of the implementation of the management plan, and also they are the leader of the other local plans. And
thank you, Shihu. I'm sorry, I will have to interrupt you there as we don't have a lot of time, but thank you so much for presenting and representing our group. Now I'd like to invite either Yoon or Thura from group 2 to please share or summarize the discussion.
Maybe Thura, would you like to go briefing people? I can help.
Sorry, shall I do the presentation for our group?
If you can do it briefly, yes, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And on the case study of Johnson, the Fishpond case study, the main stakeholder of this project are the fishermen and the local government administration and the NGO. The interest for the fishermen are they can get the alternative income from the projects, and they can grow the crops. And for the local government, they can do the economic development and tourism in this project area. And for the NGOs, we thought that they can do the conservation policy development, and they can have the restoration of this area. And also the influence on the habitat and natural resources are the find the fishermen. They can reduce from the project. The fishermen can pay their capacity. For example, they can give them the training and about the fishing or something like this. And that is all about our group 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Thura. Now I'd like to invite either Yuji or Yeonju from group 3.
Our team, Professor Kitamura, will do.
So I will introduce our results of our groups because people in our group are so shy and maybe I didn't explain about this kind of things much in my presentation. So, yes, we have 3 stakeholders. One is City and one is the Department of Storage, and they own the buildings that little towns lay eggs. And the third one is a volunteer, like us. So the interest for the volunteer is very easy. So they want to conserve the little towns, but their interest for the City and other governments is a little bit different from the interest of the volunteers. They have to keep their normal business, and they at first they want to use the rooftop as a park. So we had a kind of conflict between the volunteer people and the government for how to use the rooftops. So one of the most impact for the Department of Storage is a restriction on the building. So they want to use as a kind of solar power generation or something like that. But maybe now we are, it doesn't work each year, but we have discussed how to use the rooftops in every time. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Professor. And thank you to everyone who presented. And thank you to everyone who participated today. We hope you gain more insight into conservation and local community engagement. Now I'd like to pass it on to Vivian to wrap up.
Oh, I think it's Mercy will have a few slides to go before.
Oh, sorry. Mercy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll just take, thank you, Yumi. I'll just take a few minutes, and I hope the stakeholders analysis was an interesting or was a useful exercise for you to be able to think through of, for example, think about your project and how you're going to ensure that the stakeholders are involved. It's an exercise also to make, like, to broaden or to be able to make sure that you have a clear understanding, or you have a clear understanding of the people that you'll be working on with, and also how they're going to be affected. So I'll just take you through two more slides, and one of them is about points about what are the benefits of recognizing and engaging different stakeholders. These are some of the points that you I've already mentioned, but it's more of just a recap. Trying to understand that each stakeholder or different stakeholder have different knowledge, and they have different roles in the community, and ensuring that you've engaged the different stakeholders, it avoids harming the most vulnerable people, as I mentioned earlier, and it leads to legitimacy and credibility of your project, and also ownership of the project by the local communities and by the stakeholders that you've identified that are going to be impacted by your project. And also it generates innovation by engaging the people who have different ideas, different knowledge. It helps to come up with ideas that you might have not thought about, or you might have not seen. So it's more, it helps to have innovative ideas. And also it ensures a balance of emphasis on experience and needs and values across the community. This is the continuation. It ensures transparency, and also ensures that it provides a framework through which the varied goals of different groups can be achieved. So this is purely summarizing what are the benefits of engaging different stakeholders. And we all have seen from the exercise that you've done that is very important to take time to have the analysis or stakeholder analysis to be able to critically identify their inputs and their impact on your projects. So yeah, that's it. That's all from me. And I hope we've all gotten something from today's case studies and also from today's exercise. And it's going to help you as you go along with your conservation projects with the local communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercy, for the wrap-up presentation. Now, Vivian, I'd like to invite Vivian to wrap up the workshop. Thank you.
Wow, okay. So thank you, Yumi and Yuji, doing excellent work for the moderation. And of course, big hands to our excellent, our inspiring trainers, Mercy, for 2 days really well, we are still scratching the surface only for engaging local communities. There are a lot that we have not covered, but thanks, Mercy, for like giving us this 2 days sections training so that we know more about the local communities. And also today, thank you for our 3 case study speakers. They are doing a long-term conservation work in the ground. And yeah, like just 15 minutes is not enough to share all that they have known. So we are actually going to do the recording, and we'll edit the recording for this 2 days workshop. And we are going to upload them into the YouTube channel of EAAFP. We will also, if you remember that we also share the fact sheets and the presentation so that you can also go back and revise what you have learned today. So another thing is the post-workshop survey. That is really important to assess whether you attend the workshops, how much you understand and how much you get from these workshops, and for us to know how we can improve for the next training workshop. So please, we are going to send out the email after this training workshop today, and please help to fill in the post-workshop survey in 1 week's time. And furthermore, in the email, we are going to also introduce you to a Facebook group, which is, we developed it from the 2 years ago when we have the Flyway Youth Forum. I know some of you were also attended that Flyway Youth Forum with like 80 more young people in the world or in the Flyway. So please join, and you can receive more news, not only from the EAAFP, but other organizations or other young groups for the activities and opportunities as well. And then lastly, we still have 2 more workshops to go. So one will be coming, maybe you can mark on your diary, in August, the first weekend of August, 6th and 7th of August. There will be a training workshop by our previous trainers, Micah Menta. She is a trainer for the Conservation Leadership Program and also associate with BirdLife International. And she is going to give an in-depth workshop for the project management, monitoring, and fundraising, as well as evaluation. So this will be also like linking with what we have learned today and like in this workshop and before. And the last one will be in September. The date will be confirmed later. And we are going to introduce conservation communication and storytelling, because at the end you want to tell the other about what you have done for conservation and gain more people to support you or to spread the message. So this is our coming workshops. So we hope to see you again. Yeah, I think that's all. And yeah, lovely to see you, and thanks for staying for like 6 hours in total, more than 6 hours in total from the webinar and the workshop. So thank you very much for all your enthusiastic participation. Thank you. And yeah, big hands for all the speakers and your participation. Thanks.
Thank you, Vivian, and thank you, everyone.